this, and of course, all of y'all have. But I found this to be a golden opportunity to present Mr. Rao, who was our patient up in Dixon Heart for a few months, survived ECMO, survived cardiac arrest, bronch, I don't know how many times, probably was on a ventilator for hemoptysis. And when he came back into unit a few weeks ago, it floored me and it floored a lot of people that here's this man who came in with this absolute zest for life and praise as a cheerleader for our profession. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. J. Rao, and you'll enjoy it.
How is everybody?
Great. Awesome.
Great. Well, thank you guys for coming out. It is an honor to speak to such professionals as you guys. I'm, again, honored to be here and to talk to you guys. Incredibly special for my wife, Paula, and I. Anyways, just a little background on me. I grew up in South Florida. I'm a Georgia Tech Yellow Jacket. There's a very old picture of me running track back in the days of the short shorts. And I continue to run track. I ran and was competitive, my whole life, right up until I had the heart attack. Professionally, I'm in logistics and manufacturing management. Married to Paula. We have 7 children, between 20 and 27. All right, got that right. So they're all out of the house. And I've always been in excellent health. I always ate well. I was darn near vegan about a year ago. Lifted weights 2 or 3 times a week, ran 5 or 6 days a week. And then, 1 year ago, November the 7th, I was with a buddy of mine who I always run with, a gentleman by the name of Chuck Spencer, and we were out at Johnson C. Smith doing our normal Saturday morning workout. I was out there running some 300s, felt great, everything's going well, and then after the workout I started feeling some chest pains right behind the sternum, and they kept on intensifying and intensifying. I told Chuck, you better get me to the hospital because it didn't feel like gas or anything I'd ever felt before. So jumped in Chuck's car, drove up 5th Street, and he spotted a policeman on the side of the road, and we stopped. He called the paramedics, fire, etc., and they came about a minute later, and I got out of Chuck's car, and then it's the most unbelievable pain I've ever felt in my life. It's so undescribable, right in the center of the chest. I very quickly just dropped to the ground. I'm grabbing my chest in pain. It was, I was, things were running through my head, and my first thought was, any second now, I'm out of here. I'm clocked out because I don't know how much longer my body is going to take of this intense pain. And I remember grabbing the paramedic by the arm, and I said, like it says there, I don't want to die. Do something. I mean, I wasn't thinking of family and thinking of, my last goodbyes. I wanted to live. I wanted this guy to do something. So everything in my mindset was, okay, what do I need to do to get rid of this pain and get healthy? So we eventually got in the ambulance and went to the hospital, put me in the, on the stretcher, rolled me into an elevator. The elevator doors closed, and that was the last thing I remembered for 5 weeks. My last memory for 5 weeks. So, thus this kicked off what I call my relay that saved my life. I like using this analogy because of the great team that I was surrounded by. The first leg, relay typically, and I'm a track guy, so I gotta be geeky and use a relay as an analogy. The first leg, the first response team, the doctors and nurses in the cardiac cath lab at Dixon, the ECMO team, the progressive care unit, that whole group, unbelievable first leg. The second leg was my friends and my family, anchored by my wife, Paula. The third leg was the rehab group here, which propelled me to taking the baton and running it home. So one of the things I really like about this analogy is everything about a fast relay pertains to you guys. I mean, you're talking about skilled individuals, focused, driven, a passion for excellence, well prepared, experienced, great teamwork, timing, coordination, communication, extremely important for teams, great leadership within this group. And you can have the greatest team, but you got to execute when it counts. When I checked into this hospital, I had minutes to survive. As a matter of fact, right when I got here, I flatlined. For 30 minutes, I flatlined. So the result, speed and victory. That's what a relay team wants, and that's what this group wants. And luckily it worked with me. So I immediately went into the cath lab, and that's where I flatlined. And in the cath lab, while I was flatlining, they were also putting a couple stents in my left main. Supposedly what happened was I had a couple clots, and one of them was 75% blocked, and the other one broke loose right after the workout, went down and completely blocked the left main. And that's supposedly why I all of a sudden had that amped up pain in my chest. Flatline for 30 minutes, 2 stents inserted. ECMO, I was in ECMO machine for 5 days. I had respiratory failure, blood in my lungs, pneumonia 3 times. I went septic, organ failure, again, coma for 5 weeks, and bottom line is I had a 1% chance of survival. Things were not looking good those first few weeks. And at one point, there were several times where, one point in the day things are looking good, and another point in the day things are looking very, very bad. And at one point, one of the doctors said, "I've run out of tricks. Let's just make them comfortable." From a respiratory perspective, again, I contracted pneumonia. I had blood in my lungs. I needed constant respiratory care. I had 12 bronchs. I don't know what the record is. Do I have the record? Okay, anyways. Yeah? Okay. Paula was keeping count, by the way. I had hundreds of suctions, many times a day. I was on the vent, IPPV, cough assist. I had a trach, and I still carry my scar very proudly. It was interesting. A few weeks ago, I went and I got a haircut. And when I was getting my hair cut, the woman cutting my hair said, "Oh yeah, my mom has a trach scar too, and she can't stand it. She's always wearing turtlenecks to cover it up." And I said, "I'm proud of this thing. Every day I get up out of bed and I could walk into the bathroom and look at myself in the mirror and see that. I think of you guys and what a great team brought me back. I think, wow, it is going to be a good day." So that's my badge of honor. I'm proud of that. And the thing that blew away my mind and Paula's mind is just the complex number of parameters that needed to be monitored and adjusted multiple times a day. And we're just trying to rattle some of these off here. Respiratory rate, O2, volume, pressure, assist. You guys know this better than we do, but constantly, every day, fine-tuning these things, because obviously what was good for the heart wasn't necessarily good for the lungs. So there was a fine balance that had to be maintained. And you guys did a hell of a job of being able to do that. I'm looking for somebody. Sandy. There's Sandy. Sandy is incredibly special to us. the amount of care that we got from Sandy was, we'll never forget for the rest of our lives. I promise I'm not going to get emotional in here. But anyways, when I came out of the coma, I could only move my eyelids, as you can imagine. 5 weeks in a coma. I remember there were bodies all around, or people standing all around my bed, and the first thing I remember after the elevator door closed was 5 weeks later, and the doctor saying, if you could hear me, blink your eyes. And I saw all these sad faces around the bed, and I wanted to make them feel better, you know, and so I tried to lift my thumb up. Then I realized I can't move anything. I tried so hard to lift the thumb up, I couldn't do it. So I blinked my eyes as fast as I could, just to kind of be funny. And I overheard somebody say, yep, Jay's still in there. I did have memory loss. As a matter of fact, I forgot who my wife was. And on several occasions, I'd ask her out I'd ask her out on a date, ask her out to dinner, ask her what our relationship was. So I thought that was good. Thank God I wasn't flirting with a nurse, I was flirting with my wife. Another thing that was interesting, I couldn't tell the difference between dreams and reality. You know, I was so doped up with fentanyl and all kinds of stuff that sometimes I'd wake up and I'd see myself, you know, at Dixon with all these, 17, 18, 19 tubes and wires in my body, and I'd say to myself, this is the dream. This is the dream. Let me wake up. I close my eyes. Damn, this is reality. That was a tough thing to swallow. I had to very quickly get a positive attitude. I didn't have control over anything but my attitude. So I realized the only way I was going to get better was to have a good attitude. I had to focus, and I had to give maximum effort. I also I was hallucinating a bit. I was with Sandy and Paul out in the hallway, and I could have sworn there was a snake in the ceiling. It scared the hell out of both of them. But now looking back, I just assumed I had enhanced vision. As you can see, this is about the worst it got. I was down to 130 pounds in that picture. I'm all skin and bones. I weigh 200 now, so I've gained 70 pounds back since January. So I'm very, very fortunate to be able to get the weight back on. I was in a malnourished state. I had pressure wounds on my head, my back, and on my rear. I mean, they were down to the bone because they couldn't move me. Any movement of my body when I was in a coma would cause my vitals to go nuts. I contracted CRE. At that point, I was like, okay, what's the next hurdle we got to go over? There were just so many things that happened. And we joke around that, we used just about every piece of equipment this hospital has to offer, with the exception of maternity equipment. In Progressive, I started light PT, and I was slated to go to rehab, but my insurance company thought that I was better suited to go to a nursing home. Thank God Dr. Downey got on the phone with them and got that decision reversed in 30 minutes, which he says is a record. Second leg, friends and family. This was huge. To have advocates, looking out for you, to have love and support from your friends and family was absolutely huge. And first and foremost, I have the best wife on the planet. And, she's right there. And I often say, if anybody can look at this ugly face right there and still love him, I mean, I was looking pretty bad right there. Funny thing happened upon looking back, when Paula first got to the hospital, she comes right up. They're about to put me into the cath lab, and she sees Dr. Downey come out with his scrubs on, all ready to go in, and she grabs his arm and she goes, This is an amazing man. He's got 7 kids. You have to save him.